It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Sure, I'm missing people, but
Morning, Corey and team.
Sally, where are you?
Hi, Sally.
I don't know. I must be on page 2.
Yeah, you're somewhere. You're lost there. Oh, there you are. You're on page 3. Page 3. Representative Karens, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Former board member of Citizen.
Great to see everybody. Great to see everybody. Wow, 3 pages of people. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's great. We're expecting, we have about 115 registered. So.
All these familiar names. Great to see everyone. Councilor O'Neill, we're overdue for a chat. I'm going to call you after this.
Absolutely.
Mayor B. How are you? Senator.
Morning, Representative. Nice to see you. I'll see you tonight or today.
I think twice.
Yeah.
I'm going to be calling you as well.
Yep. All good.
Can I just do a little shout out to people to say hi to Catherine McGee, who's working with me as my legislative aide, and a neighbor next door from Lynn, and doing a great job. So one of my favorite groups, Catherine, as you know.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Good morning.
Okay, I'll mute now. Where is John Keenan?
Representative, I'm not sure which page I'm on. I'm here someplace.
I think you're with me on page 3. Great to sort of see you. Great to hear you. There's my friend, Sue Ellen.
Morning, Corey.
Good morning, Herb. Thanks for joining us.
You're welcome. Is that my friend John Keenan on with us today?
It is.
Good morning, President Keenan.
Good morning,
Herb
Mr.
Levine
Super-
here.
Good to see you, Mr. Superintendent.
How
Long
you
time.
doing, buddy?
I'm all right. I had a lot more hair when we worked together.
You sure did.
Long time ago.
Notice Herb has a hat on.
Great to hear you.
Yeah, it's nice to see you too. Congratulations on your appointment. I think they chose the right guy at the right time.
Interesting time to be a leader for sure.
That's for sure. It's a better time to be retired.
All right, Allie, I think we can get going.
Okay, great. So it's got 84 people on. A few more will probably trickle in. But thank you all so much for joining us virtually today. As we said, this is the most we've ever had for an annual meeting by far. So we're just very excited to have you all here. I'm Allie Haydock. I'm the Director of Development at Citizens Inn. Just to go through some housekeeping, as a reminder, try to keep your device on mute while the meeting's going on. This meeting's going to be recorded for folks who couldn't attend. In the chat, we have put our in-view newsletter, which includes the Mary Jane Lee list, our Stewardship Society for 2020, as well as the agenda for the meeting. So you might want to take a look in the chat for that. And members of our team will be monitoring the chat throughout the meeting if you have any questions. As a last Zoom logistic, if you want to change your view to speaker view or gallery view, you just click the top right corner of your screen and you can change it that way. So for those of you who opted to get breakfast this morning, I know a few of us did, They are from Diorcy's Bakery, one of our food rescue partners. So we hope you're enjoying that. Before we get into the board introductions, we have some important people to thank. The past 12 months have been like nothing we've ever seen before. Our staff, team, and volunteers are working hard and continue to work every day to make sure our clients are cared for and safe. We saw a 369% increase in new registrations at Haven from Hunger. So those are people who've never been to our pantry before and had to turn to us for the first time last year. Our shelter program, which houses 35 families at any given time, saw some challenges, but we also were able to place 16 families into permanent housing, which exceeds our goal for the fiscal year. Our fundraising team closed FY20 at $922,983, which exceeded our goal. For the current fiscal year, which we're about halfway through, we've already raised $930,000, but we predict we're going to need over 1.2 million in fiscal year 21 in order to meet all the unforeseen expenses that we're facing due to the pandemic. So thank you to our amazing network of donors. We've seen you step up, you've answered our call to action, and you've really gone above and beyond. Our Mary Jane Lee Society, which recognizes donors who give $1,000 or more in a calendar year, had 210 members in 2020. This is almost a 100% increase from 2019. The list of these members can be viewed in your handouts in the InView newsletter, which is in the chat. I'll now be turning it over to Stephanie Blomberg, who is Secretary of the Board for Citizens In.
Allie. Good morning. I am Stephanie Blomberg, and as Allie mentioned, Secretary of Citizens In. This is my third year on the board, and I have to say I'm humbled to be part of an organization that has such an impact on the community. Citizens In is truly changing people's lives. We have a few housekeeping items on the agenda before we get to the awards and speakers. We'd like to recognize our board of directors, new, renewing, and those midterm. We are thrilled to have 3 new board members this year, Martha Holden, Mike Ergens, and Phil Noto. Martha has been an advocate and a supporter of Citizens In for many years. She is the co-chair of the Development Committee and former board member at Haven from Hunger prior to the merger. She brings with her a wealth of knowledge about the community as both a longtime resident of Peabody, member of the Rotary Club of Peabody, and former director of the Peabody Institute Library. Mike Ergens grew up in West Peabody and volunteered at In Transition during high school. He currently serves on our development committee and is a human resources business partner at Millipore Sigma. He currently lives in Danvers with his wife Holly and kids. Phil Noto is the vice president of commercial lending at Institute for Savings. He's volunteered at our gala for a number of years and currently serves on the finance committee. He lives in Peabody with his wife Lysandra and their 2 children. Join me in congratulating Martha, Mike, and Phil. Applause. We'd like to acknowledge the 9 board members who are renewing for an additional term. Tom Barrett, myself, Stephanie Blomberg, Ted Davis, Herb Levine, Teresa Reedy, Phil Richard, Melanie Skane, Jean Ward, and Brian Vinagre. Also the 7 board members who are currently serving their term: Adria Divestein, Holly Gately, Tom Holden, Deb McGregor, Steve Pettengill, Sue Ellen Rogel, and Steve Vesey. With Steve Vesey as president, Melanie Skane as vice president, myself, Stephanie Blomberg, as secretary, and Steve Pettengill as treasurer. Melanie Skane will now make a motion to approve the 2020 Board of Directors.
I make a motion to approve the Board of Directors as presented.
And we have a second from one of the board members.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Yes. Any opposed? All right, congratulations to the new board members and the renewing board members for this year. I'm Steve Vesey. I've been president for a number of years. And as it's already been mentioned, this has been an incredible year. And I'd like everybody who's in charge of organizations or in charge of business to think about this, where overnight, literally, the need for your services is not doubled, it's not tripled, it's nearly quadrupled. For safety concerns, the bulk of the operation is moved outside, and because of the age of most of the volunteers, we lost 350 hours a week. So, you know, it's a triple hammer here, and somehow Kate and Brianne managed to pull this together. Yes, the PPP program was a godsend to us, but I think the communities that we serve, you know, owe our staff, our board members, and our volunteers a most sincere thank you. As somebody already mentioned, it's been a to a certain extent a horrifying year, as we saw images on a nightly basis of what was going on. And in response to that, we've attempted to start our own narrative for our clients and staff in an attempt to understand and help fight systemic racism. You know, this has been such an eye-opening experience for all of us on these committees, listening to what life is like here in the Northeast, and you know, educated section of the country on a daily basis for our biopic friends. And so in response to that, chaired by Vice President Melanie Skane and led by Shawnee Deschamps and Tina Kirk, we have formed the Diversity and Inclusion Committee, where we strive to help create a culture of inclusion for all those involved with Citizens In. In addition, we are close to completion of our updated 5-year strategic plan. This plan will contain the priorities of inclusion, affordable housing, organizational development, and maybe more important, the most important thing of all is the creation of a community resource center at Haven from Hunger at our location at 71 Wallace Street. The board and senior leadership has been working with Get Set Essex County, which is a special incentive funded program by Tower Foundation aimed at building capacity for 4 selected nonprofits in the area. We're very proud to be included in this, and it's such an eye-opening experience going through this, because the senior leadership of Citizens In and Haven knows how strongly I feel about them, and we have a team of all-stars, and we're so lucky that we have that. The development committee has been actively involved with the past year, as indicated by Ali, and meeting our fundraising target and helping crafting and launching our vision for the future. This last year, and obviously it wasn't easy, but our greatest marketing tool was the nightly news, reminding everybody of the need. And as you can see by our projections and what we're talking about here, we need this momentum to continue. And, you know, we want to thank all our donors. You guys have been tremendous. Thank you from the bottom of our heart, but we need to keep it going. We need to keep it going for the foreseeable future. At this point in time, I would like to turn this over to our treasurer, Steve Pettingill.
Good morning. Thank you, Steve. I am the treasurer, Steve Pettingill, and I want to thank all of you for joining us here at Citizens In this morning for our annual meeting. 1 year ago, we were all faced with a health crisis unprecedented in most of our lifetime. COVID-19 arrived in a rage, and we all remain today living our lives cautiously and operating our businesses much differently. And I can report that Citizens In management team and staff has managed this pandemic with great success. We closed our fiscal year end June 30, when March 2020 arrived with the pandemic and a full quarter to remain in our fiscal year end. And the pandemic was beginning its early and most difficult stage because of the unknown. There was some uncertainty regarding our ability operationally and financially to deliver our services, and not knowing what the pandemic would bring. But again, Corey Jackson and his staff managed it with great success. Because of all your steadfast support, past and present, Citizens Inn never missed a beat in delivering on our mission to assist our citizens in need and our residents in need. And without all of your support, our mission would be most difficult. I am pleased to report our independent auditor's report on our fiscal activities for the fiscal year end June 30 of 2020 resulted in no findings, as our internal control over financial reporting and compliance is deemed satisfactory under government auditing standards. And this is noteworthy for a nonprofit organization that relies on donations and gifts from our individual and corporate partners, as well as our contracts with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Division of Housing and Community Development, as well as other government agencies. I'll just share with you a few highlights. As of June 30th, 2020, our revenue totaled $6.1 million, a 10.2% increase over fiscal year 2019. Our year ended with revenue just shy of $5,000. This is significant considering the prior year we reported a $40,000 revenue loss. Of course, that was net of non-cash expense items. As of June 30, 2020, our balance sheet is on solid footings, highlighted by cash balances of $505,000, which was an increase by $279,000 over the prior year. Our commercial kitchen rental revenue grew to $30,000 with very limited marketing and hours of availability. In fiscal year 2022, we anticipate our commercial kitchen rental revenue having the potential of generating an estimated $200,000 annually because of the installation of the second floor commercial kitchen, which is underway, the interest from vendors and food services that require commercial kitchen space, and of course, with the hope that the COVID-19 pandemic is under control. We are hopeful the kitchen will be ready for service June 1st of this year. Again, I am pleased as treasurer of Citizens Inn to share with all of you the treasurer's report for activities of fiscal year end June 30, 2020. Back to you, Corey.
All right, thank you, Steve. Gonna just remove your spotlight. All right, so I get some fun stuff. I want to thank the board for their commitment this year, and those who spoke today, Stephanie, Steve, and Steve. Thank you for your commitments and your words today. They're so meaningful. I love that our board and our employees and our community just really walks in lockstep with each other. It's a wonderful thing to be so aligned and focused on our mission together. We're really focusing in on creating a culture of inclusion for all. I wanted to thank those that Steve mentioned earlier, Shani, Tina, Melanie, and Gianna Langis for driving forward with our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee, currently co-chaired by Melanie and Gianna. And we had an amazing training on anti-racism that some of the board members and staff attended recently. Very eye-opening, important work ahead, and it's just the beginning for us. So I'm excited to hear our speakers today, as it's just another step forward in educating our community and ourselves on what's really needed here. So I wanted to, Steve Pettingill mentioned the renovation, and I think we're all very excited about finally saying the words out loud that we have every single penny that we need in order to renovate Haven from Hunger. I mean, that's huge. We all on this call deserve a round of applause for that. It's been years in the making, starting with Elise Barbash's vision, who's on this call today. So many years ago, on my Facebook feed a couple days ago, a picture came up of me putting money into the box outside of Burton's in the North Shore Mall. And that's when Elise was running Haven from Hunger. And I remember being so proud of putting that money in that box. And from that day to this day, we've finally raised the 1.1 million needed to do the entire project. As you know, we did the first floor kitchen quite a while ago. If you haven't seen that, come and volunteer, spend some time in the kitchen. You'll see sort of what the whole building's going to look like eventually. This project has kicked off, and I want to show you the blueprint for the second floor so that you can get a really solid idea of what we're doing and what Steve Pettengill meant when he was talking about the potential for revenue on the second floor. So hopefully you all can see that blueprint. Maybe a thumbs up from Ali or Gianna. Yeah, okay. So if you take a look, I'll take you from the front door, which is over to the right side of the document. There is a lift for people currently right there in the corner, which will get people up to the second floor who cannot use the stairs. So we're really focused on accessibility here. We're installing another lift back here in the kitchen for same reasons and to get food in and out from caterers and other people that are renting the kitchen. There'll be 2 office spaces here, and Dr. Valdez a little bit later is going to talk about social determinants of health. And, you know, what we're really trying to zoom in on is the root causes that bring people to our front door. And having the space available to be able to provide a little bit longer stability for families and a little bit more direct resource for families to really dive into those root causes and pick away at some of the things that we can help them with or refer them out to. So we anticipate strengthening and growing our relationship with North Shore Medical Center, as well as many other partners in that space: mental health, housing resources from Citizens In. We have a genius housing prevention, homelessness prevention team that we expect to spend a lot of time here helping people in housing crisis. Because we all know that just starting from a stable home first, housing first, that's how it all can be successful for a family or an individual. If you take a look towards the center here, we have our dining hall. So this will be a separate dining hall space, so we won't have to convert the first floor back and forth between a pantry and a dining hall every day. So we'll have our own space up here for the dining hall, and the bottom floor will remain as a pantry, as a sort of a full choice grocery store as soon as we get out of the pandemic mode. And then towards the left of the document, you see our amazing kitchen. Front line here being where Brianne will work her magic and develop the meals for the dining hall, as well as dive into other vocational training and other things that we've always wanted to do. The back line here being what will be available to renters 24/7, 7 days a week. And that's how you really get to that $200,000 revenue number, with the bottom floor kitchen and this floor kitchen being able to be rented pretty consistently throughout the week, versus right now where we can only rent it at night and over the weekends when we're not using the first floor kitchen. So this is really going to produce this earned revenue opportunity for us to really make our vision here completely sustainable long term. We'll use the revenue off of this kitchen rental to do the work that we want to do in the rest of the space, and keep the resources slightly elevated for the pantry as well. As some of you know, we've had to hire 10 workers to work the pantry over the pandemic. We'd like to keep that staffing level up as much as we can off of some of this revenue. All right, so that's it in a nutshell. There's locked storage over here for renters. There's a cooler and freezer in the back here. There's a baking area for people who want to rent that are bakers, and a really nice cleaning area with the 3-bay sink and the big dishwasher, pass-through window. So there's a couple of pass-through windows, making it a lot easier to serve out of the kitchen into the main space. For those of you who have volunteered with us, you probably see a lot of things in this diagram that are going to make our lives so much easier. All right, I'm going to stop sharing. That's the sort of big picture, grand vision. And we think of this second floor more than just a renovation project. This is about really embracing what Citizens In is as a whole. It's about making sure that we're providing for the whole family, the whole person, that we can provide our housing services and our food services and our services of our partners all together in one space. And I'm so incredibly excited about that. This project should be completed by June 30th. We have the grant from the Commonwealth for $475,000, which is going to pay for the beginning of the project. And just on Friday, we completed our financing with Eastern Bank. So thank you to Eastern Bank for your work on that. We'll talk about Eastern a little bit more later. But that's very exciting because that was really the final, just a little bit amount of money that we needed to make sure that we have enough to do the whole thing. So that leads me to what we have for you today. We have two fantastic guest speakers this morning. Dr. Lamont Simmons of Salem State University and Dr. Christine Valdez from North Shore Medical Center. So first we're going to hear from Dr. Simmons. He's an assistant professor in the School of Social Work at Salem State University. He has practiced as a social worker in child welfare, mental health, and in school-based settings. He has particular interest researching persistence among men of color, first-generation college students, and non-traditional age undergraduate students. Dr. Simmons has also worked collaboratively on projects related to anti-racism, diversity, equity, and inclusion, to which these projects continue to inform his work as a social work educator and scholar. So I am pleased to be able to introduce to you Dr. Lamont Simmons, and I just need to find you so that I can spotlight you. If you want to come off mute, there you are.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for the gracious introduction. I have a visual. Is there a way for me to have shared access to the format? I have a visual that I can just show. And then we can go from there. All right, thank you so much for that. Okay, so I've been using Zoom for about 1.5 years, and I still struggle sometimes with the features. All right, I think this is it. Perfect. Thank you so much for that. So just a very quick shout out to all of the staff members and members of the board of directors, the community partners and donors for your commitment to ending homelessness and hunger across the North Shore, and also for inviting me and Dr. Valdez to speak at your annual meeting. So thank you so much for that, and I'm honored and I am humbled to be here. So I'm here this morning to talk very briefly about systemic racism and social determinants of health on communities that I will refer to moving forward as Black, Indigenous, and other people of color, or simply BIPOC communities, okay? And this is something that I can speak extensively about, but I'll do my best to keep my remarks broad and short within a time frame that I am given. And so it's my hope that from my remarks that you will feel encouraged to engage in deep conversations about systemic racism, that you start thinking about how systemic racism continues to immobilize our BIPOC communities from experiencing positive health and well-being, and what you can do to improve their outcomes, what you can do to improve the outcomes of members from our BIPOC communities. And that you begin to use also your personal and your institutional agencies to help create a sustainable culture of diversity, equity, and inclusion as a way to improve health outcomes for the BIPOC communities being served through the different programs at Citizens In. Okay. So I want to start by talking about systemic racism, because part of working toward addressing inequities and disparities in health outcomes for BIPOC communities is to really understand and acknowledge the existence and the truths of systemic racism, and also the relationship between systemic racism on the health outcomes of BIPOC communities. And so systemic racism is a very complex and often nuanced phenomenon that a lot of people either don't understand, or by virtue of their privileged racial constructs, may never have to understand, right? So, you know, as my grandmother used to say when she was alive, just put it where the goats can get it, right? So to put it where the goats can get it, systemic racism is a set of systems, right? I use that word with emphasis intentionally, systems, right? It's a set of systems and institutions and other factors that do what? That advantage white people with access to resources and other forms of capital. And many of these systems and institutions, which are embedded within the structures of our society, tend to be inherently racist, right? It's these systems that serve to protect and shield white people from being targets of multi-systemic oppression, right? In fact, the Black sociologist and historian W.E.B. Du Bois once said that a system cannot fail those it was never meant to protect. And so here we are a century later witnessing our systems continuing to cause harm and inequities and inequitable outcomes for BIPOC communities, which, by the way, speaks to the pervasiveness of systemic racism and how systemic racism has always been grounded in the history of our laws and institutional systems. It's these systems that cause BIPOC communities to have disadvantages in access and opportunities, right? Access to education, access to stable housing, access to employment, transportation, healthcare, legal representation, right? And even access to food. Maybe because many BIPOC individuals and families involved with Citizens In experience food insecurities. And I know that you work very hard to address this because you know that food insecurities are detrimental to health and well-being. Okay. And so we have to understand systemic racism. We have to understand that systemic racism contributes to why many BIPOC individuals and families experience food insecurities. And this is the reality. The reality is that BIPOC communities are more likely to be economically disadvantaged over their life course due to not having the same advantages and access and opportunities. That's systemic racism. So we have to understand systemic racism. We have to be open to being mindful and conscious about systemic racism and its impact on BIPOC communities in order to do the work around ensuring equity and positive outcomes for these communities. But here's the reality. The reality is that we can't do this kind of equity work until we are comfortable with engaging in conversation with each other about and around systemic racism, because systemic racism is one of many precursors to inequities in health outcomes. Now, also in doing the work, we have to work through any fragility that we might have, right? And Robin DiAngelo talks all the time about white fragility in particular, and the feelings of discomfort that a white person experiences when talking about or hearing about racial inequality and injustice perpetuated by white people, right? It's incumbent upon us to talk about racial inequality and injustice. It's also incumbent upon us to talk about racial equality and justice. Because justice can't just be for just us. Justice must be for everyone, right? And so in doing the work, we also have to have an anti-racist mindset, meaning that we have to challenge racism and use our agency to disrupt the structures that cause harm to our BIPOC communities. That even means challenging our own racism, right? As a way to reduce any potential harm that we may afflict on the BIPOC communities that we serve. We have to check ourselves before we wreck ourselves, which, by the way, is a metaphor from the great poet O'Shea Jackson, better known as Ice Cube. But practically speaking, to check ourselves is to consciously check the explicit and implicit biases that we may hold toward members from BIPOC communities. I mean, as a racially and self-identified Black male, I have to do the same thing. I'm not immune to having biases toward members from BIPOC communities. Right? All right, I could say more, but I'll stop there. But let me say something about social determinants of health, just very quickly, okay? So social determinants of health are the conditions, right, in the environment where people live and interact in. And so we're talking about conditions related to economic stability, education, and healthcare access and quality, right? We're talking about the physical neighborhoods where people live and the social spaces where people transact with each other and other systems. And these conditions are said to have a direct or an inverse relationship on one's quality of life and well-being. For example, people with stable employment, like me, right, are less likely to live in poverty and more likely to experience what I like to call socioeconomic mobility. Right? So with this example, we can see that there's a direct relationship between stable employment and mobility, right? These two conditions or variables, they jive together, they gel together, they come together, they work together, right? People are happy, feeling good, even dignified. And what does it mean to feel good and dignified? And how do these feelings relate to positive well-being and other positive health outcomes? But what happens when people are underemployed or don't have stable employment? Well, they're more likely to experience poverty. We know that, we understand that. And guess what? Poverty correlates with instability in housing and food insecurities, and even feelings of guilt or shame for individuals. And how do these relate to positive well-being? Well, they really don't, right? And so we can create all different kinds of scenarios using any of the determinants of health that you see on the screen. But what's important is that we understand the social determinants of our BIPOC communities, how these conditions affect their well-being, and then draw on evidence-based interventions that will in some measure ensure positive health outcomes for our served communities, okay? And we have to think about converging social determinants of health with COVID-19 because they go hand in hand. Okay, we know that the coronavirus has, in recent months or over the year, has highlighted existing inequities for our most vulnerable populations in society. I mean, Citizens In serves homeless families, right? And homeless families are at a much higher risk of viral transmission because they tend to live in crowded spaces and have little access to COVID testing, let alone getting vaccinated, when at least next month in the state of Massachusetts, all groups will be eligible for the vaccine. So how do we facilitate testing? How do we facilitate access to the vaccine, right? I mean, even the number of school closures at the onset of the pandemic. These closures have led to increased food insecurities among children, especially those children living and experiencing poverty on the North Shore. And when children can't access nutritious meals, what happens? They experience malnutrition, right? Which can lead to a worsening of immune responses, right? Which unfortunately can lead to serious illness or death. So what do we do about that? How do we address the conditions? So it's not just an and or when it comes to social determinants in COVID. We have to attend to both and be mindful of their impacts on our BIPOC communities. So in addressing social determinants of health in our COVID world, it's important to engage in in-house or collaborative work on designing and implementing policies that address vulnerabilities for BIPOC communities within the environments that they live in and engage in and interact in. And last, to echo the words of Steve, working to create an agency culture of diversity, equity, and inclusion, because that can go a long way toward addressing social determinants of health for the BIPOC communities being served by citizens in. And there are many ways to do this, lots of ways to do this, but the first step should ideally center on assessing the existing climate. Do the agency programs and policies encourage representation and participation of diverse groups of people beyond race and ethnicity, right? Are the voices of BIPOC communities centered in decision-making? Are our practices and programs equitable? Is there evidence of systemic racism within the structures, within our program structures? Do professional staff and administrators engage well in diversity and difference with our clients? And so many other questions, but Corey's going to kill me if I go on. Okay. And so thank you to the work that the DEI committee will be engaged in. And I'm especially excited to know that my former student, Tina Kirk, will be involved in your efforts. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Simmons. I could listen to you for hours. I'm sorry that we only gave you 15 minutes. Such an important topic. I appreciate you taking the time to prepare that and be here with us today. We appreciate your expertise in this.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Dr. Christine Valdez from, let's see, probably shouldn't have been the one controlling the Zoom here. But I'm going to bring up Christine Valdez from Mass General Brigham, North Shore Medical Center, and North Shore Physicians Group. She's going to speak on what we can do moving forward as a community to address the inequity we see in our community. Recently, Dr. Valdez and team have been making weekly visits with their mobile van to our food pantry program and others in, I believe, Salem and Lynn as well. And they're focused on reducing vaccine hesitancy, increasing access to PPE, and providing information on COVID-19 to our 5,500 unique PVD Salem and Linfield households. And Dr. Valdez and I are very excited about the potentials moving forward. And even just this last week, we were able to get some folks from these vulnerable communities on that bus over to Danvers to get vaccinated. And that's what it's all about: access, equity for the people that we serve. And Dr. Valdez and team could not be a greater partner in these efforts. So Dr. Valdez, I hand it off to you.
So a little introduction. I am a family physician at North Shore Physicians Group. I am a New Yorican, which is a Puerto Rican of New York descent, third generation New York. Yeah, I've always, just being that, I've always been interested in, equity. My life is about finding equity. I am recently been named the medical director of DEI at North Shore Medical Center and North Shore Physicians Group. And, this is one of those COVID things where a year ago, I was told topic's too big, can't really work on that. And then COVID happened and they turned around and said, yeah, let's utilize you. And then I was physician champion for a little bit. And then they're like, yeah, we need to take this a little bit further. And now I'm medical director. And as awful as COVID has been for our communities, it's actually opened so many doors at the same time. So some good has come from such badness. It's allowed us to form partnerships and look at things in a different lens. And I have to admit, several years ago when we started talking about social determinants of health, I was kind of like, why are we gonna go here? We have no access to anything. I think our lens in the medical centers was that we had to fix everything and we couldn't see how we were gonna do this. And this year's really opened up things where we're like, we don't need to do this on our own. And there's these partners who are doing a really great job in the community. We just need to link together to kind of elevate all of these projects. And you know, it's communities taking care of communities. So like the community of the medical center working with a community of, you know, Peabody and all the towns to help the generalized community. It's been a really fantastic opportunity. And I have to thank Diane Doobie from the Peabody Rotary, who also works with me at the health center, who kind of linked us in to Peabody more directly, because we hadn't had a lot of great connections. And she, you know, introduced me to Corey and has allowed us to really kind of expand our work. And we're super excited about this. You know, in terms of social determinants of health, there's a lot that we can do now that we're kind of working together. This is a little different version of social determinants health here up on the screen that has food as its own pillar. And I think this is important because it is such a major factor that affects everything on top of all of the other factors. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the things that we're kind of doing, some of the thoughts that we have, some kind of high level thinking of how we can impact these areas and help things improve. So in terms of like social and community context, you know, we need to increase our support systems in these areas, increasing our partnerships with groups like I've mentioned. And that's where we're going to make everything better, because nobody can do this alone. You know, community engagement needs to be extremely bi-directional. Right now, there's not a lot of trust in medicine. I think it's getting better. Things like our community caravan has got us out there so that we can be more directly involved with the community so that they can build a trust with us. Our initial goal was to get out and do vaccine hesitancy so we can be there repeatedly for a few weeks and people can get used to seeing us and know who we are, know our faces, and they can feel comfortable coming to us. And then our hope is, not there yet, that we will be given an allotment of vaccine where we can vaccinate people right there and then so that they've already become familiar with us and we can get them the vaccine. In the meantime, since we don't have a vaccine, we've kind of worked out some things here and there, and Charitable, who's running the Danvers Doubletree vaccination site, has agreed to give us some slots every week. About 20, which we're splitting between the towns that we're focusing on, and get people up there. We're hoping to grow that process. They are also looking to start a mobile unit in the next few weeks, and they've already asked us for a list of community partners that they can, where they can join. And so of course we've mentioned Citizens in Hammer from Hunger so that they can come in and bring the vaccine down if we can't get it ourselves. You know, I don't care who gives the vaccine as long as the vaccine is getting out there to the most vulnerable, and whatever partnerships that needs to happen, we'll make that happen. And in terms of discrimination, this is a tough one, you know, needs to come from everywhere. We need to increase education and government changes, call it out, standing up to it. I think more people are putting an eye on this area now, and that's certainly going to help. We have so far to go to improve this. And without it, we're going to just, you know, keep in this situation that we're in now. But there's light at the end of the tunnel, and we do see some improvements. So hoping to just continue to build on all of that. Stress is a big factor in the social context. And it's with this year, it's just been unbelievably difficult. There's not a person who hasn't experienced a level of stress. It's impossible not to. This has affected every aspect of our lives. Zoom has actually been a great thing in that it's actually allowed increased access to many people to behavioral health resources, but not enough. And some of the people most in need don't have access to that. We need more behavioral health resources. We need to get out there in a manner that people can access it. I think it's always been needed, but this has, again, shown a light on just how much we need these services and help address the community and make things better. So I'm hoping that there's continued interest and we can get more people involved in this area so we have more access to behavioral health specialists. In terms of food, hunger is such a significant factor in healthcare, and the reliance on and the need for food pantries has just so markedly increased during this time of COVID. It's horrifying, but yet feels really good that there have been so many resources growing to help address this, and that so many people have opened their eyes and are donating more and volunteering as much as they can with the restrictions. But even with the increased resources, there's still not enough to meet the demand. So we're working on trying to increase these food resources and to be able to help eliminate this need for hunger, because you know, in this country, to have so many people be hungry, it's just so horrifying. We want to increase access to healthy options. We're trying to partner with local farms and increase the production and the amount of food that's going over into food pantries. We're also looking to get our nutritionists involved in healthy options for people from the food that they have access to, healthier ways to cook it. Food is medicine, encouraging, for diabetics, you should pick these foods rather than these foods, and this will help you. We're looking to have some teaching kitchens, which we would like to have, be free to the public, just to show them healthier ways to cook the food and be still culturally sensitive. These are the flavors you like, but here's how to make it healthier. So hoping that we can increase all of these partnerships to increase the health of our communities and decrease the food disparities. In terms of neighborhood, housing is another significant factor that has come up so significantly in COVID, the crowded housing situations allowing to the spread of the disease so quickly, and how do we get people spread out, this winter not having enough shelter space due to social distancing as well, finding more resources for people, partnering with some hotels to get families sheltered. We've been trying to work with local governments and identifying needs, increasing housing access and increasing affordable housing units. There's still so much that needs to happen in this area. I felt that this was a harder area trying to tackle this winter time, particularly. Housing is such a significant cost, and just thinking forward on how to work on this more and ways to help out in that area. There's talk about parks and green spaces, and we're hoping that actually we can help get some more community farms going. There's quite a few groups in the area who work on this area. It increases green space, but it's also a community activity. People can come in and grow their own healthy food options and then have more food and can take it home. We could also do the teaching in those areas to help educate people on what the healthiest foods are, and again, the cooking of these healthy foods. So we think that this is a good all-around community activity and space to work on. Healthcare, clearly that's my area of focus. Health coverage. This has always been something that pains me, that if you don't have any health insurance, you pay so much more into the system because there's these rules that you have to charge the same thing to a person without healthcare coverage that you would to insurance companies, but the insurance companies make deals that they only pay 25% of what you charge them, but the person who's paying on their own has to pay 100% of that. Makes no sense. We need more rules to make this better. We need to get back on the sort of the Affordable Care Act and make sure it's affordable to everybody, and that people have access to these, close up some of the loopholes where we're giving people access to healthcare coverage, but with high deductibles that it's not really healthcare coverage. And work on fixing things for that poor working class. They're right in that transition of having very much so lack of coverage. They're not making enough to buy their own insurance, but they don't qualify for mass health. And they're getting lost in the shuffle, and we need to make some changes to the system to make sure that they're covered better. Also, this switch to more part-time workers that's getting companies out of helping to pay for insurance. The healthcare forces switch from full-time where coverage and benefits were there to this much more, oh, pardon me one moment, focused on part-time work. I had multiple calls coming in on top of this Zoom. Sorry about that. So there's provider availability. This is a difficult thing in terms of primary care. People aren't going into the field. Sadly, primary care is not valued in this country, and it is paid at significantly less than specialty care, and many people are going into specialty care, but we need the primary care. Primary care is where all this disease prevention happens, and where we make the most impact on these social determinants of health. We're the ones who are asking the questions on social determinants of health. We're the ones who are linking up patients with social services and community resources. So we need to reinvest in this area to help increase the healthcare of the community. Provider linguistic and cultural competency. We have resources for translational services, and we need to make sure that everybody's utilizing them so that we are making sure that patients understand what's happening and that we're communicating to people. And of importance is understanding the cultures that we're taking care of. We may not be able to speak the languages because I can barely speak English, much less, Spanish is my second language. And then taking on any other languages outside of that is a little bit beyond a lot of people's scopes. But understanding culturally who I'm taking care of, I think is of significant importance. And I think that that's something that we need to educate people on more. Just understanding the cultural biases that people have toward health and their reluctance about engaging with the system can help us engage with them more and improve their health status and their living statuses. So I'm hoping that there's a lot more work that will be happening in this area. Quality of care. This is something that we're focusing heavily on within the health systems. We have certain quality metrics that we look at. Diabetes care, hypertension, cholesterol are just some of them. Cancer screenings, mammography, pap smears. And what we've done is actually taken all of our lists and we've added in the race, ethnicity, and language data on top of that and look to see, do we have disparities in certain racial or ethnic groups? And then we're focusing on those first and foremost to make sure that we are reaching out to people in the language that they understand best, and then working on their hesitancies and trying to engage them more in their healthcare to overall improve. So I'm suspecting that we will see significant improvements in this over the coming year. Education. Education is a big one, and one that I feel quite passionate about. I feel that working with our communities to help elevate the communities on different options via education and jobs is super important. I feel mentoring is of significant importance, and we've actually had a significant uptick at the health center in this area as well of people wanting to reach out and help out in mentoring opportunities in the community. So we're working with schools and student programs in terms of not only grade school and high school students, but also with adult education and English as second language classes. North Shore Medical Center has a program for staff members whose primary language is non-English to help them improve their English skills to help move them forward and things. Early childhood education, we know that this is a benefit, making sure that it is free for all. It helps the parents at home who are trying to work and manage their children, and it helps the children get a leg up on their education and continue that moving forward. Vocational training. Students need to know about different programs and what are the possibilities they have for vocational jobs versus higher education. I feel like there's a dearth in this understanding, and people are kind of forced into one or the other with them not fully understanding. I myself got into medicine without actually fully understanding what I was getting into. I think if I had had more knowledge, I might have chosen a different path. I do think I'd made the right choice in the end, but it wasn't because I knew what I was doing. Higher education, financial support, you know, companies, jobs helping to pay for higher education in order to help with career advancement. So people aren't getting stuck in positions. I think this is really important. It benefits the companies to have workers who know their system continue to advance and advance the companies. So companies need to feed back in and help support, got more government assistance, more help with student loans. The cost of higher education is insane, and it's what drives people into, or out of, I should say, fields that can really help the community, but they're going into super subspecialty areas because of income. You know, we need more groups such as Leap for Education, which is Learn, Explore, Aspire, and Pursue. They work with students from the Salem, Lynn, and Peabody area, from grade school through college, and help them pursue their educational goals through tutoring and mentoring. And that's one group that we've become more and more involved with. North Shore Medical Center also has a youth jobs program to help students see the different career options that are available. Economic stability. We need to increase employment opportunities, help with job training, for income, some pay equity and living wages across. This is big picture. Medical bills we already talked about, and support. We want to increase our community resource, community health workers who are out in the community helping others to get the resources that they need. And sorry, I went way over time. And finally, our goal is to improve the health of all the citizens and communities that we serve. So we're hoping that with these increased partnerships, we can get there.
No worries at all, Dr. Valdez. That was amazing. A lot to cover in a very short amount of time. And I know we're over our time, folks, but we do have a little bit more to go. We just hope you can hold on for at least 10 to 15 more minutes. Thank you so much, Dr. Valdez. That was incredible. And Dr. Simmons, for your words today. This is a lot to think about, and incredible partners to move forward with in both of you. So thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
All right, I'm going to hand it off to Gianna Langis, our development officer.
Hi, everybody. Good morning. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Gianna Langis, and I am the Senior Development Officer here at Citizens Inn. And I am excited to announce this year's Citizens Inn Corporate Partner of the Year. And this year is Eastern Bank and the Eastern Bank Charitable Foundation. They've been true champions for Citizens Inn for many, many years. The Charitable Foundation has stood up for those who are unfairly and historically marginalized, and are intentional about access when it comes to working towards equality and equity. They've prioritized funding in the areas of early childhood development, support of immigrants, and advancement of women. Their celebration of social justice event honors those who are fighting for equity in our community year after year. They've volunteered dozens of times at our shelters and at Haven from Hunger, attended and sponsored our annual gala for many years, and participated in our back to school drive and Stamp Out Hunger. The Eastern Bank Charitable Foundation has made 6 different gifts since the pandemic began. And we've recently closed, as Corey mentioned earlier, closed a generous financing from Eastern Bank to complete the renovation at 71 Wallace Street. So before, I'm just seeing if any of the Eastern Bank folks are on here. So hi, Cindy, Cindy and Jackie McKay, and I think I saw Taylor Sparkus at one point. I just wanted to say a big thank you. We have your plaque here. We'll be sending it over to you, but a big thank you to Eastern Bank and Eastern Bank Charitable Foundation. We love being able to partner with you guys throughout the year. I'm so happy to know all of you very, very well. And thanks for being such a true champion for Citizens Inn.
And thank you for all that you do for the communities that we serve. We're so proud to partner with you in your efforts, and congratulations on the tremendous year that you've had. And again, we're so happy to have been of help.
Thank you. I think I'm turning things back over to Corey, possibly Kate. But if any of you can see right now on Kate and Brianne's screens, they're probably in the midst of pantry. It's 9:38. So at this point, the pantry is up and running. So I think I see Kate and Bree there. Hey.
How you doing? We're a little windblown out here today.
As to be expected, I wanted to throw things over to you guys to talk about our volunteers of the year.
Okay, Brianne is going to handle the first one.
Wonderful.
Yep.
Well, come on over, Tom.
Yay.
Yeah, there we go. Tom works for the Trial Court Community Corrections in Salem. For the last 5 years, Tom has brought the adults who owe court fines to Haven 3 days a week to work off the fines. The impact for Haven has been substantial and has accounted for 250 to 400 hours of service work each month. In March of 2020, the pandemic forced the closure of the trial courts, and Tom was furloughed. He was very aware and is friends with many of our senior volunteers on whom we rely so much to run the pantry. So many of them suspended their volunteer efforts. So Tom began coming in himself at least 3 days a week and continued to do so until the trial court resumed in the fall. Due to the modified community service process currently used by the trial court, Tom wasn't permitted to transport those who needed to complete supervised community service. Rather, he advocated for meeting community service participants at Haven and serving with them side by side. His commitment to the mission has been exemplary, and his help has been invaluable through the pandemic. So we are so thankful for Tom and his work that he's done. I enjoy it. We're all so excited for him. Yay!
Thank you, Tom. You're amazing.
So I'll hand it over to Kate.
Now we're moving on to the real superstar.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, next up we have Jim. Jim, come on. Ooh, come on the picture, Jim.
Get on in there.
Okay, so we have Jim Hurley, who is, guys, Jim is a Peabody resident who has volunteered at Haven for the past 3 years. Jim and his sister Kathy have been looking for a worker volunteer position for Jim for many years. Finding the right fit regarding tasks and milieu had proved to be a challenge. Finding a safe haven at Haven, Jim committed to volunteering 4 days per week, and over the years has become embraced and beloved by staff and his fellow volunteers. Despite having several pre-existing conditions putting him at higher risk for COVID-19, Jim insisted on maintaining his regular volunteer schedule, 9 a.m. to 2:30 p.m., 4 days per week. Jim has completed the tasks asked of him and filled vacant roles to the best of his ability. Jim always shows up ready for whatever the day brings and for whatever tasks may be assigned. His quiet persistence, diligence, and consistency are inspiring and worthy of this recognition. Additionally, his sister recently shared that volunteering at Haven has been a life-changing experience for Jim, for which she is grateful. I really can't imagine how much more difficult the work would be particularly early in the pandemic, without these two volunteers, and we are so grateful for their dedication and for their work.
Hey, Jim.
Part of the Citizens In family.
Thank you, Jim.
Thanks a lot. Hey, Jim in the house.
Awesome.
I'm very grateful for the award. I'm really grateful for the award. I'd like to thank Kate and Brianna for helping me out. Much healthier. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you so much.
All right, back to work.
Awesome. Now you guys will see the real Kate come out.
Thank you, Kate. Thank you all for attending today. We may be in a new year, but we're still feeling the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic for sure in all of our families, our jobs, our communities. and believe we will for many years to come be dealing with the impacts of what we're facing right now. There is hope. You know, the vaccine is here. We're figuring out ways to get it to the most vulnerable with the partners that you saw today and others. The PBD Health Department has been incredibly generous to us very early on in phase 1 with our families experiencing homelessness and our staff in those shelters and people who interact with those shelters were vaccinated. And now the mobile bus trying to get people over to the DoubleTree as much as possible is going to be an amazing resource. And our work in inclusion could not be more timely and focused and important. And I'm really excited for where that's going to lead us over the next few years. We will be following up with an email with the slides from this meeting for you all. I just want to quickly give a shout out to Ali, Gianna, and Rachel for coordinating this event, making it painless for all of us. And this was amazing. You put together a wonderful program, and I'm very grateful to you guys. To our staff, one more time, all the employees at Citizens Inn and all the volunteers, you guys, this year, I really don't know how you do everything you do in a normal year. So everything you did in this year, give yourselves a huge pat on the back. I know you're not good at doing that. You need to. And remember to take care of yourselves. Everybody on this call, remember to take care of yourselves right now. Board members, thank you so much for your commitment. Our board has been on fire this year. We're just hitting on all cylinders and doing really important work in committee, and I really appreciate you all. And congratulations to Martha, Mike, and Phil on their induction onto the board of directors. Board members, if you could stay on the call, we are going to have a regular meeting. It will be really quick, probably 15 to 20 minutes. If you could just stay on, we'll take a 5-minute break to let everyone else leave the meeting. If you want to come off mute and say goodbye, feel free. Thank you very much. Have a great day, everybody.
Hi, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye. Thank
Great
you.
meeting. Thank you.
Thank
Guys, over here.
And Sally Kearns, thank you for getting me involved in this.
My pleasure, Steve. You and Sue Ellen are my lasting gifts to to this awesome organization. Thank you so much for your continued amazingness. Congrats on a phenomenal year. Okay, I'll go. Bye.
Thank you, Sally.
Thanks, Sal.
I'm going to remove.
Yeah, I'm working on that too.
Should we unmute now, Corey, the board?
Yeah, you can unmute, yep.
Okay.
So Corey, I've been involved in probably a half dozen of these here, and this is the smoothest one yet.
Yeah, this was great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jean, that's not Jean Ward, right?
I don't think so. I
Not
think
the right spelling, so I'm gonna.
I think that might be Jim's
Oh, okay.
sister. Oh, she's gone. So
Okay, everybody should be all set now, I think.
I think Jean Ward did have to drop because she has to get over to Haven, I believe. I don't think I see
Okay,
it.
thanks, everybody. Really
Thanks,
appreciate
everyone.
you being there.
All right. Steve, do you have the agenda open? Steve VC?
No, I don't. I on top of everything else going on, I broke my, so I have my cell phone, and once I'm on my cell phone for this, I can't get anything.
All right, I'll run us through it. Let me just find it.
I have it, Corey.
It's still recording. I don't know if you want it to be or not.
Yeah, I'm gonna stop it.